Incredible journey, black female CEO's seat stolen, leading to an unexpected grounding revealed. Ava Thompson stood outside the sleek glass conference room, where her future hung in the balance. At 38, she had clawed her way up a corporate ladder that was slick with prejudice, armed only with the lessons her mother had instilled in her: integrity, tenacity, and the understanding that hard work could pave any road. Yet, as she adjusted her blazer and prepared to walk in, a shocking realization halted her breath. Her seat at the table was not just empty, it had been claimed by Lucas Reed, a rival who had spun a tale of deceit to undermine her competence. The gust of the Chicago wind felt like the chill of betrayal wrapping around her. The conference room buzzed with chatter, the air thick with ambition and unspoken tension. Whispers about her capabilities slithered through the room. Pressure mounted, clawing at her insides. Could this be the legacy her mother sacrificed everything for? A life of struggle boiled down to a mere second of indecision as she prepared to confront the enemy sitting where she belonged. Ava felt a surge of indignation rise within her, a fire sparking against the frost of disappointment. It wasn't merely a professional attack, it was personal. The echo of her mother's voice rang through her mind: integrity over everything. Could she really let herself descend to the realm of petty retribution? But the choice before her felt brutally skewed. Fight against the lies. Or remain silent, letting fear imprison her aspirations. Her heart raced as the voices of doubt seeped into her thoughts, amplifying her anguish. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Ava's hands trembled as she took a deep breath, trying to steady her racing thoughts. Every decision had weight, every word could shift the balance of power. Images flashed through her mind: the sacrifices her mother made, every hard-won fight for respect, and the nights spent building a life from nothing. The stakes had never felt so high. This merger was a beacon, a chance to finally break the glass ceiling that had loomed like a specter during her ascent. Yet here she was, being mocked by the very company she wished to elevate. Lucas wore a smug smile, confident in the shadows he had cast over her reputation. The whispers continued, like poison seeping into the air around her. Behind every glance, Ava felt the weight of doubt festering. Am I enough? The question clung to her throat like a weighty anchor. The fear of failing was a tangible entity, wrapping around her chest and squeezing tight. Yet beneath that fear, there was a determined flicker. What she had discovered about her family's past provided a glint of hope. They had faced adversity and emerged stronger, a legacy of resilience. As Ava prepared to confront Lucas, her heart thundered in her ears, sending her pulse racing. A moment loomed before her, to stand and reclaim her voice or allow them to snuff it out. The stakes surged as a twist: a friend with ties to Lucas, dimmed her confidence further. Was loyalty as precarious as it felt? Tension crackled in the air, as if the room held its breath, waiting for her move. What would she sacrifice to ensure that the principles her mother cherished weren't just upheld, but celebrated? With the clock ticking towards a life-altering decision, Ava faced the brink of her destiny, forcing her to confront the essence of her identity while the boardroom spiraled towards chaos. Ava inhaled deeply, steadying herself against the onslaught of adrenaline coursing through her veins. The cool air was sharpened by the tension wrapped around the room, each heartbeat echoing within her chest, urging her to act now. The echoing whispers faded, transforming into a singular thought: integrity was her armor. As she stepped through the threshold, the sea of faces turned towards her, each one a blend of curiosity and masked malice. Lucas leaned back in his chair, his demeanor casual, but a glint of challenge shimmered in his eyes. He thrived on this tension. It was a battleground, and he had already claimed the high ground. "Ava, glad you could join us," Lucas drawled, his voice oozing sarcasm. I was just discussing the new objectives for the merger. There's been some confusion regarding your role. Laughter rippled through the room, but Ava's focus narrowed. She wouldn't allow his bravado to unnerve her. Confusion? Ava's voice emerged steady, resonating through the noise like a clarion call against the storm. If there's any confusion, it's about how a seat taken from someone deserving reflects on this company's culture. Silence cloaked the room momentarily, leaving behind the faint crackle of her boldness. Disbelief flickered across faces as she continued, I'm not here to validate false narratives. People rise together, and it's through merit that we'll succeed. Each word punctuated her purpose, her past solidifying the resolve that burned within her. Lucas narrowed his eyes. You're quite the idealist, Ava. This is business. You need to align with this new strategy if you want to stay relevant. The undercurrent of his tone was one of antagonism. He wanted to undermine her yet again, to snuff out her flame. Relevance does not equate to silence. Her grip on the table tightened. My relevance stands with integrity, not conformity. This company can either lead with values, or, as I would say, get left behind. A round of murmurs rippled through the board members, some heads nodding in slow agreement. Her confidence began to be a survival instinct, a shield against the antagonism. Yet, behind Lucas' eyes, a wild mixture of anger and respect brewed. Ava sensed the danger of awakening a beast. Do you really believe the board is going to take this lightly? He leaned forward, his voice laced with a menacing undertone. Or do you think they'll prefer an employee whose loyalty can be questioned? Her heart raced, but Ava was ready. She had known loyalty would be tested, but rather than falter, she spoke with the conviction of the many sacrifices her mother made so that her legacy could thrive. Loyalty can only extend so far when it leads to betrayal. Are you bold enough to think deceit will secure your position? As the pressure mounted, she noticed a small group of board members shifting, their expressions transitioning from amusement to concern. Maybe she was gaining traction. Maybe the power was silently shifting in her direction. Yet in the depths of an exposed vulnerability, the friend she had counted on stepped into the limelight. I didn't know, Ava. I was just trying to fit in. The words hung heavy in the air, and guilt washed over her. Their friendship, intertwined with her ambitions, now jeopardized by this betrayal. Was her rise predicated on a trust no longer possible? The boardroom tension snapped tighter, a silent war brewing. One step forward for her integrity led 2 steps back in her personal life. How long could she withstand this turbulence? Ava stood resolute, ready to navigate through personal chaos and professional strife. Every glare and whispered doubt would fortify her against Lucas. The moment of truth teetered closer, spiraling her into an uncharted territory where she must fight not just for her place, but for the values that defined her. The realization struck her battle did not lie solely with Lucas. It was with anyone who dared to silence her vision. As she contemplated her next steps, uncertainty clouded her thoughts. Would betrayal open her to unexpected allies or further isolation? Time pressed on, and she took a moment to ground herself again. The metaphorical ground she fought to reclaim stretched farther than the boardroom, and Ava was left wrestling with the realization that not all sacrifices lead to clear victories. She needed a plan, and fast. As the weight of her choices settled around her, she faced the board's eyes. Would they support her or collapse her ambitions before they could flourish? The sand slipped through the hourglass, and Ava knew she had to seize her moment before confidence dissolved into nothingness. A new urgency surged within her. The time had come to face the real adversary, a question she had evaded until now: how far was she willing to go for her beliefs? Ava took a breath, the stale air of the boardroom mixing with the weight of her thoughts. The faces surrounding her, still wary, began to blur as she focused inward. Doubt flickered around the edges of her mind like shadows, but she couldn't allow them to devour her resolve. Every betrayal she had experienced sharpened her instincts. How could someone she cherished pivot so quickly, shape-shifting from ally to potential obstacle. Moments after her friend's confession, the atmosphere shifted, akin to a predator sensing vulnerability in its prey. Recognition settled in. This wasn't just about her role or ambitions. This was about reshaping the corporate landscape, redefining who could genuinely fit into it without compromising their values. With steely determination coursing through her, Ava knew she needed allies. Her gaze swept across the board, searching for signs of support. Who might share her vision? Who understood that loyalty was more than just a word? A glance from a seasoned board member, Miranda, caught her eye. There was a flicker of understanding in the older woman's expression. It motivated Ava to strategize, to formulate a plan that transcended the immediate confrontation with Lucas. "Let us make this clear," Ava said, her voice steady and resonant in the silence that followed. "If we're to move forward with this merger, steps must be taken to ensure that the culture we foster is built on integrity, not convenience. It's essential we don't lose sight of what made us strong." Her words rippled, eliciting nods from a few seats. She wondered if Lucas had underestimated her reach. Perhaps he thought she couldn't pull together enough support to counteract his machinations. That miscalculation could be the key to turning the tide. As the board began exchanging glances, Ava felt a surge of confidence. She needed to harness this moment, to pivot the narrative away from Lucas's intimidation and back toward a collaborative future. Ava realized that asserting her values didn't just stake a claim for her role, it demanded an endorsement from her peers and perhaps even a shift in the corporate identity of their company. "Are we not all invested in this company's future?" she pressed on. "In a future that supports diverse leadership and mutual respect? I propose we hold an open forum where employees can voice their concerns and aspirations. A culture thrives when communication flourishes." The board shifted, a blend of surprise and consideration knitting their brows. Some were clearly impressed, others apprehensive. Would this be viewed as a challenge to the hierarchy? She could practically see their internal debates, each considering whether supporting her would strengthen the company or further ignite the tension. Lucas stopped leaning back in his chair, his full focus was now on her. "You think a forum will change anything?" He scoffed, but there was an edge in his voice that Ava relished. Perhaps she had touched a nerve. "It will at least demonstrate our commitment to transparency," she challenged, ready to defend her proposition. "The days of silence are over. If we want to thrive, we must incorporate every voice at this table, and beyond. Not just the loudest, not just the ones who fall in line." A subtle murmur of agreement rippled through some members. Ava's heart raced. She sensed the pendulum swinging. Yet, the shadow of Lucas lingered, and she could see the glint in his eye, the acknowledgement of a respected opponent. The tension in the room thickened, but Ava remained focused, pushing down her unease. She had entered this boardroom with the intent to confront deceit, but now she had transformed the conversation. This was no longer just a fight, it demanded the courage to redefine who she and her colleagues could be. As Miranda shifted in her seat, a plan forming behind that knowing gaze, Ava realized she could cultivate those first tentative alliances. Maybe there were more supporters waiting in the wings, but she needed to tread carefully. But just as hope flickered to life, her resolve faltered momentarily. A whisper of fear punctuated her determination. Was her friend's betrayal just the beginning? Could Lucas orchestrate a more insidious plot to destabilize her efforts? Grappling with uncertainty, Ava resolved to confront these developments head-on. She would strategize, determine the weaknesses in Lucas's tactics, and create a compelling vision that united the board, a vision that lived beyond the constraints of the current struggle. The air crackled with tension, and as Ava gathered her thoughts for the next bold step, she felt the weight of her ambitions surge within her. But time was not on her side. Could she transform this moment into a foundation for lasting change before Lucas made his move? With a final look at the board, a mix of anxiety and determination flooded through her. Ava needed to act decisively. Would she rise above betrayal, or would the emerging storms divert her course as she sought to lead with integrity? The answer loomed tantalizingly close, like a pivot waiting to be executed. Ava's vision sharpened as she found herself at a crossroads. The room felt electric, air thick with the clash of propriety and ambition. Lucas's dismissive words echoed, almost tauntingly, igniting a fire in her gut. Now was not the time for hesitation. With a note of urgency prickling her skin, she leaned closer to the board members. Let us not mistake my proposal for weakness. The very culture we want to cultivate rests upon our commitment to every employee, not just those who happen to align with our personal interests. Despite the quiver of uncertainty that lingered, Ava focused on the faces in front of her, gauging their reactions, looking for any flicker of interest or agreement. Miranda's expression transformed support gave way to wary contemplation. Ava seized the moment. Our long-term success hinges on authenticity. We have to advocate for those who may be intimidated by the very dynamics we promote. This isn't merely about making ourselves comfortable within this elite circle, it's about growth, real growth. She could see that much of the room was torn. Some members glanced at one another as if weighing loyalties. Others wore outward expressions of curiosity, perhaps considering the uncharted territory of open communication for the first time. Ava pressed her advantage. Let us take this initiative beyond theoretical discussions. A forum can unite us, expose the fissures in our current system, and allow us to strengthen our foundation. Before anyone could react, Lucas added, and if this forum reveals fractures too deep, what then? You're playing with fire, Ava. The shadows behind Lucas's eyes hinted at danger. Did he sense the potential for dissent among board members? Could his presence stifle her uprising before it took root? The thought sent a cold wave of realization through her. Yet Ava refused to retreat. Fire creates light, Lucas. It bestows the power needed to illuminate the path we've overlooked. Her heartbeat surged. This was no longer just about her role, it was a fight for her integrity. As murmurs of concern bubbled up again, Miranda interrupted, her voice tinged with newfound assertiveness. Ava's right. We've become so fixated on competing with each other that we've ignored the very essence of our company's mission to foster innovation. The tide began to turn, small ripples of agreement manifesting as more board members shifted uncomfortably, questioning the alignment of their values. A forum implies risk, Lucas countered, pushing deeper into her soft spots in an attempt to rile her. What if it leads to chaos? You could lose your chance at influential leadership because of unchecked discussions. Leadership is about control. Is it? Ava questioned, her tone steady. Leadership is also about guiding and nurturing ideas. Real progress comes from collaboration, not domination. Who are we if we don't allow others to share their perspectives? The boldness of her questions reverberated like a battle cry within her, vulnerability transformed into an opportunity for strength. Her mind raced, examining Lucas's looming shadow. She felt the heaviness of her friend's betrayal press against her resolve. This moment was about reclaiming her narrative. Yet, the tension remained palpable. Was Lucas just a temporary obstacle, or was he the harbinger of an impending storm that could dismantle her every effort? Deep within, Ava faced a disconcerting new thought: her friend's betrayal could serve as a catalyst, an unexpected grounding that shook her foundational beliefs enough to reconsider her alliances. She'd witnessed people fall prey to the slippery climb of ambition. She needed to play smart, not just fearful. As Miranda nodded her support, Ava felt a surge of gratitude. Maybe this simple act could unravel the tightly woven threads of doubt within her. Every minute brought with it a choice: hide in anxiety or forge ahead and reimagine her world. Perhaps Miranda represented more allies waiting to be uncovered, those also weary of Lucas's tactics. Ava felt power pooling in her veins, yet the question still taunted her. Could she truly reshape this board, or would the shadows of betrayal and competing ambitions loom too large? The room held its breath. She knew the next moments were critical, that the future could pivot dramatically at any moment. Ava exchanged a glance with Miranda, a silent pact forming among them. In that strong internal shift, she could almost taste possibility. But just as the gravity of her newfound purpose sank in, Lucas's voice cut through the tension. You may want to think twice before moving forward with this idea. The stakes are higher than you comprehend. The impending confrontation sharpened her focus. The time had come to face a reckoning she both longed for and dreaded. Would Ava emerge disciplined and bold or falter under the weight of betrayal? Clarity was within reach, yet hidden challenges lurked, daring her to confront them. In the tense silence that followed Lucas's warning, Ava's mind spiraled, contemplating the landscape she just dared to challenge. She could feel a shift, like a storm brewing just beyond the horizon of that boardroom. Every face, some shrouded in loyalty, others in trepidation, teetered on the brink of decision. The stakes, as Lucas articulated, were indeed high, but Ava was learning that those stakes also fanned the flames of her ambition. She took a steadying breath and shifted her gaze towards Miranda, who seemed resolute, radiating a cautious yet exhilarating energy. How about we discuss what we've been missing instead of defaulting to fear? Ava proposed, her voice steady, free from the tremors of her uncertainty. We must embrace the challenge, she continued, resisting the urge to glance at Lucas. The true potential of this company lies in transparency, not control. We can't afford to let fear dictate our narrative or our future. Miranda nodded, joining the emerging coalition as murmurs of agreement rippled through the room. Ava felt emboldened, yet a rising disquiet tugged at her inner thoughts. The betrayals of trust, first from Lucas and now from those whose silence implied complicity, weighed heavily. Aligning herself with Miranda felt right, but was it strategic or simply a desperate grasp for support? Lucas's eyes narrowed as a knowing smirk crossed his face, sensing her unease. You gallantly romanticize dissent, Ava, he retorted, his tone dripping with sarcasm. This board thrives under structured leadership, where hierarchy guides decisions. How would your forum help us if it just endangers our stability? Stability. The word cut deeper than she expected. Her previous complacency gnawed at her, and she felt the need to cast off the filaments of doubt that encircled her. Had she prioritized stability over innovation for too long? With each accusation Lucas threw, she began to see fragments of a greater puzzle, one that demanded bold creativity. Stability without innovation is stagnation, Lucas, Ava shot back, her pulse quickening. And we cannot afford to stand still while the world outside shifts. A true leader encourages the divergent voices within discussions, even if it leads to discomfort. That's how companies break barriers. With every word, the trajectory of the room tilted. Some board members, clearly unsettled by Lucas's authority, began whispering among themselves. Ava pressed on, her defenses rising. We owe it to our employees to cultivate their creativity. We need to breathe life into our mission. If we fear exploration, we contradict our own values. In a heartbeat, Ava's words transformed from mere arguments into a rallying cry. She could see shifts in favor, nods that were previously absent now found a home in the air. She sensed a fracture in Lucas's once imposing facade. But doubt lingered, slicing through her newfound momentum. Would she be able to guide them without being sidelined by ingrained complacency? Leading through this shift demanded not only vision but a strategy that would unveil her hidden capabilities. The conundrum lay in balancing her ideals with the practicalities of corporate governance, a tightrope walk that tested her ability to innovate from within. As the tension in the room relaxed to a simmer, Miranda interjected, Ava's right. We should not be hostage to our own conventions. Her words empowered Ava further, igniting a flurry of encouragement among the board members. Taking a step back from the chaos of her thoughts, Ava began to piece together her own goals. What if she could transform this organization into a space reflective of authentic leadership? Yet another urgency resurfaced. Lucas was gathering weapons for whatever would come next. Just then, Lucas broke through the bombarding sense of possibility. Be careful, Ava. With your vision comes scrutiny. This approach won't go unnoticed, and I believe it will backfire. The clear threat hung in the air, and Ava sensed it would require more than willpower to stake her claim. What foundational alliances remained unexamined? What unforeseen rivalry lay ahead? The challenge of this board and Lucas's presence could metamorphose into a desperate struggle for identity and authority. Determined, Ava met each of Lucas's unyielding promises with her own fire. If she was going to rise, she would have to confront him and expose the shadowy elements of his manipulation. This was her moment, but the journey to self-assertion would demand both strategy and requisite fortitude. Her path forward would not only require confronting Lucas, it would take unraveling her understanding of leadership itself. As determination coursed through her, Ava realized the battle had only just begun. The weight of impending decisions loomed ever larger, but so did the prospect of pioneering change. With one final glance affirmed by her fellow board members, Ava's heart raced, bracing for the challenge that awaited her. Would she define the course of her leadership, or would she succumb to the intricacies of sabotage around her? The future demanded an answer, but the gears of her initiative were finally in motion. Ava's pulse quickened as Lucas's words reverberated in her mind, a haunting echo of the challenges she had to face. Confidence, once a hulking guardian of her ambitions, now stood like a fragile wisp of smoke, threatened by the gusts of doubt swirling around her. This had transformed from a board meeting into an arena, where her resolve would be pitted against not just Lucas and his adversities, but the very complacency she had been complicit in allowing. With newfound clarity, Ava designated her next move, a transparent strategy aimed at fostering an open dialogue across the board. She envisioned a collaborative platform where voices would harmonize rather than clash, acknowledging the legitimacy of dissent but channeling it constructively. It was time to ignite the spirit of innovation and creativity, although the specter of Lucas loomed large, persistently casting shadows across her plans. That afternoon, Ava immersed herself in research. The articles piled up, detailing companies that had successfully navigated disruptive change. They were less about strict hierarchical chains and more focused on agility, empowerment, and collective intelligence. She found herself scribbling notes, ideas for incorporating feedback loops that would not only democratize project pitches but also disrupt the monotony of rigid structures. This was to be the cornerstone of her vision, a proposal to create a culture where vulnerability, even mistakes, were embraced as learning tools rather than shackles. Yet, beneath her fervor lay a simmering anxiety born from her past experiences battling against her own insecurities. She remembered a time when she hesitated, paralyzed by the fear of failure. Was she truly capable of leading such an initiative? Could she carry the weight of this transformative vision through the scrutiny of her peers? It was all too easy for the shadow of doubt to grow, but her internal dialogue began to shift. No longer did she have to play a supporting role, she had the competence, the drive, and now, a plan. The following board meeting arrived faster than she anticipated. At the precipice, Ava felt the gravity of the moment compressing her thoughts. The room held a mix of curiosity and skepticism as she presented her initiative, a radical shift in strategy that called for a revamping of their approach to innovation. Ava's heart thrummed in her chest as each board member scrutinized her, but she held steady, especially under the steady gaze of Lucas. No one likes change, Ava acknowledged, selecting her words carefully to address the collective uncertainty. But stagnation is a far greater threat. I propose we stop censoring creativity and instead harness it. Through our platform, every employee can contribute ideas, and we will curate feedback that aims for improvement rather than criticism. Let us pivot from a fear-based structure to one of mutual growth. As she spoke, she noticed a few heads nodding. Her plan was resonating. However, Lucas's face remained inscrutable, all too aware that he might need to undermine her approach if he was to retain his grip on power. With a confident voice, Ava challenged the board, "What if our future hinges on the very voices we ignore today?" Lucas leaned forward, his irritation palpable. "And what if this initiative reshapes our company into something unrecognizable? Have you considered the consequences of misguided voices?" Ava met his gaze head-on. And what of the consequence of silence, Lucas? We risk irrelevance. I won tea back down from this. Within her churned a potent cocktail of anxiety and determination. This confrontation had repercussions. Each unwavering word felt like a step toward an inevitable clash, heightening the already tense atmosphere. She realized this moment was not only about her initiative but also about setting the tone for her leadership. As the meeting progressed, it became evident that support was shifting in her direction. Board members began to rally around the need for change, intrigued by her vision. However, Lucas orchestrated a counteroffensive, delving into the potential risks, his voice dripping with disdain. Tensions began to build again, and Ava understood that the stakes were higher than she had imagined. Later, she retreated to her office, a sanctuary from the chaos. The weight of the day pressed down on her, and she stared at her reflection in the glass, feeling frayed yet empowered. She could not allow Lucas's fury to derail her momentum. It was not merely her career on the line, it was the essence of effective leadership she needed to embody. Resolute, she began drafting an email to Miranda, outlining further steps to solidify their alliance. Together, they could strategize about galvanizing other board members and building their coalition stronger. As she pressed send, a shiver of anticipation coursed through her. This was merely the beginning. The challenge ahead loomed like a tempest, with Lucas now a formidable adversary. But as Ava contemplated the trials to come, she recognized that within every obstacle resided an opportunity to uncover her true potential. With a deep breath, she embraced the uncertainty that lay before her. The next board meeting was scheduled, and she anticipated facing Lucas once again not merely as a rival but as the catalyst for her transformation. The real test awaited her. Would she emerge as a transformative leader, or would she become entangled in the very traps she sought to dismantle? The time had come to face the consequences of her aspirations. As the days leading up to the next board meeting dwindled, Ava felt the pressure of anticipation and dread weighing heavily on her. The deadline to solidify her proposal was looming, but so was the specter of Lucas. While she had gained some traction with her strategy, she was acutely aware of the remaining barriers. It was as if she were walking along a battlefield where each decision could either ignite her path to success or plunge her into a deeper quagmire. Determined to build her coalition, Ava began scheduling one-on-one conversations with key board members. Each meeting was a careful chess match, where she aimed to gather support while also listening intently for dissenting opinions. With each discussion, her confidence started to grow. She embraced the role of a leader who valued collaboration yet remained resolute in her vision. Her voice was steady, her focus sharp. This minor triumph began to chip away at the anxiety that had plagued her. In a meeting with Grace, the board's head of finance, Ava laid out her vision. "Grace, I believe we have the tools to innovate. We just need the courage to put them into practice." Grace, known for her analytical mind, nodded slowly but still wore an expression of trepidation. "Ava, it's not only the idea, but the follow-through that matters. What guarantees do we have that this will yield the results we need?" Ava paused, realizing that answering Grace's question could either bolster her resolve or reveal cracks in her strategy. What if we measure success in terms of engagement and creativity instead of just financial metrics? Our culture needs to evolve before our profits can. This pivot in thinking resonated, and Ava left the meeting feeling slightly more buoyed. She was learning to navigate this complex space, each conversation fleshing out her perspective. Yet, the growing sense of empowerment was continuously shadowed by the impending confrontation with Lucas. He had lost some ground but remained relentless. Ava could feel the way he dissected her every word at the meetings, his skepticism a constant reminder of the battle ahead. It gnawed at her in quiet moments, the doubt creeping in, whispering that perhaps she was aiming too high, striving for change in an organization that thrived on suffocating norms. On a late-night work session, as Ava meticulously reviewed her proposal, a realization struck her. She had been focusing too much on the external dynamics, the board, the company culture, Lucas, while ignoring the internal resources at her disposal. She had forged connections with employees outside of boardrooms, she had seen their passion for change bubbling under the surface, longing for the opportunity to be heard. Deciding to harness this momentum, Ava sent out a company-wide message inviting ideas for enhancing the culture of innovation. She framed it not just as a proposal but as a call to arms. Every voice mattered, every idea was a step toward progress. The next morning, the response was overwhelming. Inboxes flooded with passionate thoughts and creative suggestions. Ava felt a surge of energy as she read through them. Not only were these messages a testament to her vision manifesting, but they ignited something deeper within her. She realized she was not just pushing against the establishment, she was cultivating a movement rooted in collective ambition. Yet with newfound hope came the reality of confrontation. As she gathered the insights to bolster her next presentation, doubt crept back in. Would Lucas dismiss these contributions as frivolous? Would the board still see her as a usurper in their meticulously structured world? The stakes rose dramatically. Sitting at her desk, Ava glanced out the window. The city hummed beneath her, vibrant and alive. And for a moment, a sense of clarity washed over her. She was no longer just a participant in this game, she was a player keen to redefine the rules. Confidence buoyed her resolve as she reminded herself that every great change started as a challenge to the status quo. When the day of the board meeting came around, she took a deep breath, feeling the adrenaline surge through her veins, ready to present not just her initiative but a vision that had taken root among the ranks of her colleagues. With her heart pounding in her chest, Ava knew this meeting would either mark her ascendance or plunge her into a struggle for survival. As she walked into the conference room, the air thick with tension, she locked eyes with Lucas, his expression a mask of scrutiny and challenge. It was now or never. The moment of truth was nigh, and Ava was prepared to face whatever lay ahead. Amidst the charged atmosphere, she felt a flicker of determination igniting within her. She was ready to face the battle for her vision. Would it be enough to push through the suffocating norms, or would she find herself overwhelmed by the very system she intended to disrupt? The answer awaited her. Ava stood before the imposing long table of the boardroom, the sleek veneer reflecting a subdued but strategic ambience. The weight of her gathered insights and bold proposal pressed down on her as she glanced around at the board members. Their varied expressions mirrored her own internal struggle, anticipation mixed with trepidation. Lucas, seated at the far end, leaned back slightly, arms crossed, his countenance one of skepticism. A shiver of doubt threaded through her resolve, but she swallowed hard, recalling the passion flooding her inbox just hours earlier. "Good morning, everyone. Thank you for being here," Ava began, her voice steady, though her heart raced. "Today, we're not just discussing a proposal. We're talking about an evolution, an opportunity to redefine our culture and, ultimately, reshape our future." As she spoke, a sense of purpose coursed through her veins. The earlier anxieties began to settle into determination. She shared her key insights from the employee feedback she had received, which painted a vivid picture of their desire for engagement and creativity. The open atmosphere fostered by her memo echoed in the room, and she could feel the board members leaning in, curiosity piqued. "Imagine a workplace where ideas aren't stifled, where every voice contributes to our innovation roadmap," she continued, her tone growing stronger. "One where success is celebrated in engagement, not just numbers." She caught Grace's eye, offering her a brief nod of acknowledgement. Grace returned it, a flicker of something akin to approval in her gaze. Yet, as Ava turned back to her presentation, she felt the weight of Lucas's eyes boring into her. "Interesting concept, Ava," Lucas interjected, his voice dripping with sarcasm. "But do you genuinely believe our success relies on sentiment over solid metrics? Engagement doesn't pay the bills." Ava took a deep breath, the sting of his challenge puncturing her initial confidence. For a moment, she faltered. It would be easy to retreat, to conform to his established narrative that so many others had accepted. Instead, she leaned into the tension he created. "Lucas, I believe real change starts from the ground up. Our employees have ideas that transcend traditional financial metrics. If we don't engage them now, we risk losing our opportunity to innovate." The room fell silent, her words hanging in the air. Ava felt the pulse of her own heartbeat in her ears, yet she pressed on. "I wouldn't disregard metrics, they are certainly important, but they cannot be the sole validators of our efforts. The groundswell of creativity I'm witnessing signals a vital force that we must tap into." A simmering tension filled the boardroom. Lucas's jaw tightened, and she could see the gears turning in his mind. "So you're suggesting an overhaul based solely on received ideas from employees? What if they're not aligned with our core objectives?" Great leadership is about aligning vision with the staff's ambitions. We're not discarding our objectives, we're expanding them. If we can engage the team in this transformation, we'll build a foundation of trust and loyalty that no financial figure can quantify. Ava asserted, her tone resonating with conviction. Gradually, she noticed subtle shifts in body language around the table, a slight uncrossing of arms here, an intrigued nod there. Perhaps her approach was beginning to take hold. But as she wound down her presentation, she mentally prepared for the inevitable backlash. Lucas would not relinquish his grip easily, and she sensed that this was only the prelude. After her closing statement, Ava opened the floor to questions. "What are your thoughts?" she asked, catching a glimmer of hope in Grace's renewed expression. The silence stretched, fraught with tension as she scanned the faces around her. Before anyone could respond, Lucas leaned forward, a mischievous smile creeping onto his face. "This is all very heartwarming, Ava." But the reality is Ava's heart dropped slightly, anticipating what he would say. The battle was far from over, and she was acutely aware that she would have to defend her vision not just from Lucas but from the entrenched belief systems in the room. With a fiery determination igniting inside her, she steeled herself for the oncoming confrontation that would determine not just her professional fate, but the very culture she aspired to create. This was not just a meeting, it was a culmination, a battleground ripe for transformation. Bring it on, she thought, ready to confront whatever came next. The moment of truth was unfolding, and the stakes were higher than ever. Would her vision find acceptance, or would it become just another casualty in the relentless pursuit of traditionalism? The answers lay in the battleground she was about to navigate once more. Ava's heartbeat quickened as Lucas's gaze sharpened, his momentum like a well-calibrated weapon primed to strike. She braced herself, knowing that he would exploit any hint of uncertainty. The boardroom had transformed from a mere venue of discussion into a live performance, and she was the lead actress on the precipice of change. "Reality, as you put it, is often a construct of what we choose to value," Lucas continued, words clipped like the snap of his fingers. "You're talking about creating an oasis of creativity, but in the corporate world, oases dry up when the budget runs low. What's your plan when things go south? Desire doesn't equate to productivity." A collective breath was held in the room, a potent mix of anticipation and doubt cloaked the table. Ava felt the air grow thicker, yet amid the tension, a flicker of clarity ignited within her. She could play it safe, but the idea of retreating sent a ripple of dread through her. This was her moment to carve a path for something greater than herself. "Lucas, let's not mistake engagement for mere whims," Ava countered, discomfort curling in her stomach. "It's about harnessing potential, eventually shifting the company's ethos. Trust and accountability are worth investing in, they provide the resilience needed to weather financial storms. This isn't about flowers blooming, it's about building a garden that flourishes regardless of the climate." The corners of the room shifted slightly, reactions murmured through the crowd. She noticed Grace leaning slightly forward, another board member, Carl, had shifted in his seat. Was it hope? Maybe. But could it also be fear of what would come if they didn't adapt? The dynamics were subtly evolving, awakening hunger for renewal. "That's a beautiful sentiment, Ava," Lucas replied, a thin layer of mockery beneath his calm exterior. "But when do you expect this garden to yield harvest? Growth doesn't magically appear overnight." Growth is not just an overnight phenomenon, it's an ongoing commitment, she replied, trying to tap into her own belief as much as to sway him. If we keep approaching the company solely with a profit-driven lens, we will cascade into stagnation. Look around, there's fatigue in our halls. If we acknowledge that, if we invest emotionally in our team, they'll surprise us with what they can yield. That's the direction I want us to take. Tension rippled through the boardroom again, but this time an undercurrent of curiosity infused the air. Ava saw slight nods, a few skeptical frowns becoming thoughtful expressions. She began to give voice to how collaboration and change could build an internal system of support, setting a foundation for what could rise. As Lucas prepared to retort again, Ava could feel sparks of adrenaline fueling her words. Think about it, Lucas, why do we struggle with innovation? Because we're missing the connection. We have people who feel disenfranchised, eager to contribute, yet every pulse of creativity is met with a sigh from the very top you occupy. We can overturn this. Together. The silence stretched out as she locked eyes with Lucas, hoping to convey both her resolve and expectation of their collaboration. His expression briefly flickered, unease lurking behind his practiced demeanor. Would he bend? Yet, she sensed Lucas's mind working, a storm forming. He inhaled deeply, readying another cutting reply. She prepared herself for anything. This was a battle of wills, one where the outcome would signal whether her vision could defy the status quo. Let's be real, he said slowly, the edge softening. You may have a following now, but the moment they realize they need more than just inspiration, you'll lose them. In that moment, not merely an attack, the words acted as a bell tolling clarity. Ava took it as an opportunity for her own growth, searching not only for a counter but a furthering of her vision. What if we redefine what more means? Budgeting to enhance employee empowerment alongside numbers might yield a real competitive advantage. Our biggest strength is our people, yet they're still waiting for a green light to unleash their full capacities. A shift had occurred, doors began to unlock in her mind. Lucas remained a pillar of skepticism, yet beneath it, perhaps there was room for negotiation. As the discussion heated, Ava realized she was no longer merely advocating for an idea, she was inadvertently revealing her evolved leadership style. As conversation swirled, the weight of determination on her shoulders felt much lighter. How far less compromised she had become, crafting not just agile strategies, but a vision of belonging that inspired courage within her. The question lingered in the air, would this be enough for them to consider allowing her to lead this change, or had they eternally sealed their fate in their combative ideologies? As Ava peered into the faces around her, she wondered which board member would impact her leap toward leadership most. The moment felt charged with possibilities, and she braced for the responses ahead. Would her vision take hold, or would it crumble beneath the weight of fear? The boardroom felt alive, each voice a droplet in a tide shifting toward potential change. Ava stood at the epicenter, fueled by her previous turmoil, ready to assert her newfound clarity and direction. The atmosphere crackled, a delicate balance between anticipation and skepticism. Let's think critically about our future, Ava began, her steady voice contrasting sharply with the intensity of the moment. Innovation isn't just a buzzword, it's a foundation. We have the opportunity to craft an environment where creativity thrives and, as a result, heightens productivity. She noticed a flicker of interest in Grace's expression, a heartbeat of hope that nudged Ava forward. This isn't just about engagement surveys or brainstorming sessions. It's about actively participating in our culture, rewriting narratives that have long kept us in a box. Lucas leaned back, crossing his arms as if preparing for battle. You're asking us to invest in ideas without a guaranteed return. Corporate leadership is about clear outcomes, Ava, not philosophical musings. Ava met his gaze head-on. Isn't it traditional thinking that led us to this point of stagnation? A structure solely focused on numbers neglects the lifeblood of our organization, our people. If we invest in an empowered workforce, they will create the outcomes that benefit our bottom line. The tension in the room transformed, morphing from hostile to contemplative. Several board members glanced at one another, the realization of her argument starting to resonate within their midst. A seasoned member, Zach, broke the silence. "You may have a point. What if we considered that a vibrant company culture leads to more innovative solutions?" Ava pressed on, encouraged by the faint shift. "We can pilot my proposal for 6 months. If it doesn't yield returns, I'll step back and reassess, but we can't afford to sideline potentially game-changing ideas." Lucas scoffed, but for the first time, there was hesitation in his stance, a flicker of wariness that Ava hadn't seen before. "That is risky, Ava. If it fails, you'll be held responsible." She seized the moment. "I'm willing to take that risk because that's what leadership demands. We need to embrace experimentation as part of our evolution. If we're not willing to adapt, we're inviting irrelevance." An unexpected consensus began to build in the room, bolstered by the energy of those who had felt their voices marginalized for so long. "Let us open the forum," Ava proposed, "and gather feedback from employees," Grace suggested, easing into the group dynamic. "I believe it could reveal some insightful perspectives." "Yes," chimed in another board member, Mazhanda, her normally quiet demeanor suddenly stoking enthusiasm. "This could clarify what our teams truly need." Ava felt a surge of momentum propelling her forward. "We can create metrics to assess employee engagement and innovation output. The results will not only reflect our commitment to transparency but also bridge the gap Lucas fears." "Fine," Lucas replied, unable to mask his annoyance. "So we try it your way. But if it fails, it will be on all of you." Ava smiled internally, a victory was at hand. "Thank you, Lucas. I believe this approach will show our commitment to forward thinking." As the meeting drew to a close, Ava stood at the front, heart racing with anticipation. The unanimous decision felt monumental, more than just an endorsement of her proposal. It honored her vision and leadership. The moment marked a watershed, a stark contrast to where she had started. From the frigid chamber of a seat stolen to this triumphant reclamation through collaboration and resilience, Ava had evolved not only in stature but in belief. She could effectively innovate without losing her authenticity, proving that integrity and ambition could coexist. That evening, as she left the boardroom, the Chicago skyline sparkled against the darkening sky, a tangible reflection of her journey. Ava wasn't just a contender anymore, she was emerging as a leader who not only championed change but embodied it herself. Through standing firm against Lucas's dynamics, embracing vulnerability, and nurturing her colleagues' voices, Ava demonstrated that success is a tapestry woven from both ambition and integrity. She had transformed adversity into empowerment, enhancing her reputation and solidifying her position as not only a strategic leader but a source of inspiration. With each step she took, Ava knew she had crossed a threshold into a new chapter, one rife with opportunities, challenges, and the potential for authentic growth. This is the moment for you to show your support and become part of this journey. If you want to dive deeper into these transformative stories, you need to subscribe now and never miss an exclusive emotional narrative again. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and keep these stories alive. Comment your reactions and theories about Ava's incredible transformation. Don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to hear her story. Your engagement makes a difference.